months ago, I made a new friend. Right when I needed it. Best friend's been there. He's been through it all before me. What happened next is truly for the books. This man opened his heart, he opened his heart to me. He opened his heart for you. So no matter what, no matter what, you've got to roll. Yeah, you can't go slow. Get through this time we're living in. Get your updates from Wages World. You may find yourself in the mirror, quoting yourself, you're looking for answers. Get your space weather from Wages World. The Wages World. Go get it all from Wages World. You check it, you gotta see me coming at me. Gotta get on by 3, gotta tell the world, get ready, cause you don't know what's coming. If we're gonna shut down, no, but we're gonna give it to you. If we can, we're going to be prepared. Get your prep on the Wages World. Get your funk with the Wages World, yeah. Maybe we'll have a little Hammerlin Jameson.
Hey guys, what's up? Sorry about that. I kind of jacked that up a little bit. Anyway, yeah. Got some stuff here I want to just run through again real quick because, yeah, stuff's going on. I don't expect to see a whole lot of people here, but, you know, is what it is. Just want to get it out. Maybe people will watch on the replay or whatever. So, yeah. Yeah, I had another flare, guys. And I'm gonna go ahead. I touched on this in my last video. I had an email from Jamie, and wanting to know about why hurricanes and stuff spin the direction that they do, and all that. And I kind of touched on it a little bit, but I can show you real quick exactly why. It's not hard, pretty easy to understand. So, okay, yeah. So look at this, guys. You know, another high C-class flare. Now, this is, if you guys remember about a week ago, when this sunspot was on the limb, do you guys remember what I was saying? I was telling you guys, when it gets in front of us, we're going to have to watch it. Because something I even pointed out, the fact that there was some like little faded lines looking, like little faded signatures on this one, on this particular view. And it was kind of, you know, back here. And I told you guys that, you know, as the sun cycle progresses, those will become more and more prominent and actually, you know, have black cores and stuff here. And they'll really start interacting with each other, causing flares. And that was something we were seeing here on this one when it was way over here. and it blew some pretty big flares off that side, and along with CMEs and things. So obviously, got to watch out for that when it comes earth facing. That's exactly what I said. I'm pretty sure I had to go back and watch the live stream, but this is, as far as being right in front of us, it's pretty close to right in front of us. Okay. Now, obviously, it's not directly at the equator of the sun, but it's down pretty far south. So anything that blows off from this direction, from this position, has a decent chance of hitting Earth. And what I'm getting ready to show you guys, it's pretty evident that we're going to have to pay attention. And I haven't seen action like this in quite some time, as far as just the, if we go back up here, C-class flares, 3 of them in 12 hours? And there was time between them, so it wasn't like wasn't like one flare destabilized everything and kind of calmed back, kept spitting and sputtering. This thing blew, kind of calmed down a little bit, not a whole bunch. There's still some little ones in here, but then it blew big again, and then it blew big again. So, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. As far as, yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Kenley. Hey, Bex, what's up? Daniel, Tab, Andrew, do it. Okay. Yeah, I'm like a squirrel, like I said. I get hammered in the comment section all the time for talking to the chat when it's up. But, I leave it up here for a couple reasons. Like, if one of my mods was to, hide somebody or hide a comment or delete a comment or whatever, you guys would see that happen right here. Okay, you don't necessarily see that if you don't see my personal chat box. So I leave that there for a lot of times just for that reason. So there's no question about what, is going on. It's being just full, effort to be transparent about things. And, it's not necessary. I get that. But that's why it's one of the reasons. And the other reason is if you guys got questions, I glance back over a lot and see what you guys are talking about. And I try to answer questions whenever I can. And I get it. I don't do a whole lot of live streams like I used to. So I do want that connection with you guys. I think it helps everybody. So that's why I do that. But anyway, we got these flares, right? And so let's just go look at them. How about that? The one on my thumbnail, it's one I haven't seen like that in quite some time. And it is just the way that the camera picked it up. I don't think it's 2 separate flares. It's just a double X pattern flare. It's just the way the camera was seeing it. Okay, so we're going to take a look at it. It's right here, and it's very interesting. Okay, the way that this happens. So let me grab that. Now I'm going to just kind of run this through because you're going to see a couple other flares too. I already showed you guys in my last stream. So as this thing progresses forward, we'll see all of it. So let me just start moving it here. Starting to spit and sputter. And there's really the first big one. Okay. I don't want to call them big. Because, guys, let's face it. C-class flares really aren't that big. You got to when you want to get really, really bad flare action and stuff that can be bad for the Earth, we're really talking about, mid-range M-class or even high-range M-class into X-class to see some major stuff. Now, there's outside chances that you get big stuff lower, but the chances of it happening with a C-class flare is pretty little as far as a catastrophe, like grid down type of stuff. But what we're seeing here is, obviously, there's that first flare. And it is an X pattern. And I guess I could zoom in even more if you guys want me to. I think that's as far as I can go with the zoom. But as we move this forward, see how it kind of calmed down again? And something else too, if you guys didn't see it, watch right here. See that little, it's almost like a little spark. It actually is connected to this. If you guys can see this, that's a magnetic connection line. So that's how far away. I mean, they can really reach quite far. And and interact with other parts of the sun. So as we move forward here a little bit, now you see that actually the charged particles traveling on that connection line right to that spot until it went ahead and flared, which is what it's getting ready to do. Okay, little small ones there again. See how they were all going towards that little spot? Now, what I'm showing you here is what I showed you at the end of my last live stream, that like almost like a jet of plasma just kind of blowing off the sun there from that flare. But it's flaring, 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 okay, and then that. Now, I think, was that the one I already showed you guys? Let me look. It might not. I think that, nope, it wasn't. So that's the one I showed you guys already. And obviously that, yes, it looks impressive, and it's not a baby by no means, but you can definitely see how this has got some plasma with it. There was a CME with it. Is it coming at us? Good chance that some of it probably is. But as we keep moving here, watch what happens again. Bam, look at that, okay? You get that. And then boom, boom. You see that? Okay? We're talking 5 flares. I thought there was only 4, but when I went back and looked at this, there was 5. Decent sized flares. So, if I go back here and I look at this, you can see it. Barely. There's the first one, or the 4th one, I should say. And there's the 5th one. Kind of went that high. See that? That's a secondary flare. So, there was really 5. And that's the one that gave us the double X pattern. So, I wish I could zoom in further, guys. But I'm in as far as I can go. I hope you guys can see that. That's a double X pattern flare. And it's really, really interesting. So, I've seen this happen before, but not very often do we see these kind of a double signature X pattern flares happening. Now, this particular flare was not as strong as the one right before it. This one here is probably the strongest one we've seen all night. And I'm going to take you over and show you the 304 because you're going to see how much plasma is actually leaving the sun. There's quite a bit of plasma. When this erupted, it did a pretty good job of it. Okay? So, let's do that. Let's go to the 304. Well, I'll show you the 211 real quick while I got you down here. This one doesn't take a capture as often. The 211 doesn't show as many captures. It's like a 10-minute increment instead of like a 4. I'm not sure why they did that with this one, but they did. So, as we get moving here, you're going to see it start flaring. Boom, boom. Okay, and there was the... Okay, so it does show really well in this color. It's pretty defined, but then you see that, right? You see the double X pattern again? Right here? And see, there at the end, you see it really blow out? I mean, that's pretty intense, okay? Not to mention the one that blew off here was blowing our direction pretty much. I mean, everything here has got a chance of coming our way. So I just want to point that out, okay? Because I can't say for sure yet how much of it or how big it's going to be, or if we're going to take it right on the chin, we're going to take a glancing blow, is it going to miss us altogether? I just simply don't know. Not yet. We got to wait for the stuff to come in. But you see how remember that little spot I was showing you? That's that magnetic connection line, and it's reaching right out to it. And that's what these charged particles, that's the road that they have to stay on. They have to stay on that magnetic connection line. So when they blow off, they're on an IMF line pretty much from the sun to the earth, and they're traveling a similar road. So let me go on up here to the 304, and this is where you guys are probably really be interested in this one, because this really does show really, really well how much is actually blowing off of the sun. And it gives us a pretty good idea of the direction too. Now remember, when you see shadows here, that's the filament parts of it, like that road I was just talking about. When those lift off and blow off, those are CMEs. So that's what we're looking for here, and that's what we're seeing. So let's just go forward. Now, something else I want to touch on here. Look over here. That flared also. I noticed yesterday during some of the stuff I was looking at, the whole sun started acting up at the same time. And it was kind of odd because things were pretty quiet. I mean, heck, I could show you. Remember, stuff takes about 3 days to get here. And I can show you right here, if you go back and look at the sun a day ago, this is pretty much what, with a delayed time frame, that's why we're not seeing much here, because the sun got pretty quiet for a couple days. Other than like coronal holes. No eruptions or anything. Then all of a sudden, bam. I mean, it was all over the place. Here, I mean, just all over the place. So, as I'm going down through here, check this out. There's another one. Okay, now did you see the plasma? I showed you guys this in my other stream right here. But what I really want to get you to is the ones that we just had again. That's why I'm doing this stream, because, and you can see it kind of blowing off there. And it's just continuously, now that's the one I showed at the end of my stream earlier. You see how that's really just kind of blowing off like a big jet. I mean, and it is. But watch this next one. Okay, so there's the flare that just happened. Okay, now watch the plasma leave. Look at all that. You see how it's all, just this whole area is just flicking out, man. And then this does it again, and it really blows out again over here. Look at that. Look at that eruption. Okay? It's erupting over here at the same time. This is pretty impressive as far as eruptions, I have to say. I mean, this is not a slouch by no means. Okay? Now remember, the sun's not on fire. Okay, I know I say that. People think I'm crazy when I say that. Some people do. But you have to understand, there's no oxygen there. You have to have oxygen for fire. It's a fusion process, and I'm not going to get into the science behind it, but it's not on fire. But you see all this stuff? That did not stay on the sun. That blew off the sun. So we're going to have to pay attention to this and see what happens here, because even down here it was doing it. And I don't think this thing is done. Look at that one. Okay, you guys seeing all this? I mean, this is like a continuous, look at that eruption right there. Look at that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to reset that just to update it and see what kind of captures we can get. And see if we got anything else since I've done that. So let's take a look at this. Look how that all stayed out there. Still blowing, just particles out into space. Boom, boom. Look, I mean, that one there is just like crazy. Okay? It's still, I mean, it was so disruptive right there that it really just kept moving for a good amount of time. That's backwards. That's going backwards. That's frontwards. And guys, remember, we're talking 5 or 6 different flares here that are not small. And remember, the flares isn't really what we're talking about here as far as with the eruption. Okay, that's X-rays. The flares do the X-ray thing. They produce X-rays, and that's how we measure how strong a flare is. The CME with it, okay? Until the Carrington event got really studied, they thought that these things were all one thing. They didn't differentiate between the two, but they are different. So yeah, and again, guys, when we're talking about, like I showed you guys earlier, these X patterns with the hash marks and stuff, I used to think those were like X flares, but this is just what the camera picks it up like. And it's not, when somebody says X flare, it would be up here. This is where you would see it would have to be all the way up here as far as X-ray production to be considered an X flare. Every flare, if the camera's at the right angle, will actually produce a small X pattern. And that's what I'm trying to say. When you got like on the 131 on my thumbnail, that's why I used that one, because you had a double X pattern. And again, I did that because it's just interesting. But yeah, I mean, look at that, guys. that right there, even look at that. I mean, you can see how it's picking up all these multiple, and that's just how the camera's picking it up. That's just how it's interpreting the data, pretty much, is what I'm trying to say. But that's pretty intense. That's facing right at Earth, no doubt about it. But is the CME coming at us? I would have a hard time thinking that at least some of it's not. I think we're going to have some issues here in a few days. Okay, probably 3 days most likely, depending on how fast this thing is moving. Hopefully, it takes it a little longer to get here, because the longer it takes to get here, typically the weaker it is. So, as we're doing this, check that out, man. I just can't keep. Look at that one right there. Watch, you see I want to point this out too. There's a ball of plasma that gets shot right off the sun. Watch. You can see it go through, and yeah. See how it just kept going? So if I do it a little bit faster, you might even be able to see it better. See that? That's a lot of charged particles getting just flung out into space. Now, looking at this one here, this part of it, it does look like that would sail to the right of Earth, okay? Which would be actually the west if you're talking about space. It's backwards. Like if you're looking at a map, when you're talking about the sun, this over here, the left side, is actually the eastern limb. And it's backwards, and I'm not going to get into why, but that's how they map it out. So, I mean, like I said, guys, I told you guys back here when it was over here, we're just going to have to watch it, because it was going to do some more stuff. I didn't anticipate all this. I can tell you that much. Oh, Scott's in here? Hey, what's up, bud? Oh, it was a C6? Yeah, it does not surprise me one bit. That is definitely something that, I mean, this is impressive, guys. I have to say. It really is. This is some impressive, neat-looking stuff. Now, this is on the high end of what I would consider borderline may cause us some issues. Okay? Because if we're going to talk about geomagnetic storms, we have to understand that when we're talking about that, G1s and G2s, magnetic storms, don't typically give us much of anything other than nice-looking aurora, maybe some uptick in the earthquakes, all those kinds of things, right? Those types of things. We're not talking about grid-down type of stuff, okay? And I said this in my last live stream, so often people go back and they, compare what we're seeing now to the Carrington event. Guys, there's not a whole lot of comparison to that Carrington event. If we seen something like that coming at us today, I guarantee you people would be flipping out. Because we would see it before it got here because of the technology we got. Okay? So, yeah, it's crazy stuff, man. I mean, it just really is. I mean, I just think it looks neat. It intrigues me. Anybody that's been into space weather, Scott's here, into that at all, I mean, this really gets us a little bit excited because it's neat stuff. That's just what we research. You know what I mean? So it does get you kind of going, and I know you probably hear a little excitement in my voice, and I don't mean for that to be there, but man, I mean, this is impressive. Now, like what I want to say, guys, as the sun cycle progresses, this will become more and more common. Okay, because right now that's the only sunspot facing the Earth right now. But remember what I said. This one flared earlier today. Well, in this time lapse, let's go back all the way and see if it still shows it. Yep. See it? See the X? So that one flared too. We did catch some X-rays from that, or we wouldn't even have seen that. But that, yeah. So we're talking 6, possibly more. So I mean, it's definitely something that we're going to have to watch, and just stay vigilantly watching it because, frankly, guys, there's not much more we can do. I mean, let's just face it. What are we going to do? Unless you're prepped up, there's nothing you can do. And that's why I tell people to prep. That's the whole reason. In case the bigger ones, and again, I have to say this, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It will happen. And more people, even mainstream science people, are saying this sun cycle is going to be really interesting as far as what we see. So that's just what I have to say about that. Now, here's the 171, and you can see, I show you guys the 171 because it does show atmospheric disturbances pretty well here on the sun. So if we go to where that was blowing out, okay, so you seeing all that? It's not really showing you the flare real well, but you can see the atmosphere, especially on the limbs. This one really shows it, this view really shows it really well. So, but, okay, this right here is what I think is being affected the most. When you're talking about 7+ earthquakes in the middle of China, where they don't typically see them a whole lot, and then you go this is a good distance away from each other, guys. You go from here to here, and then you see a 6-1. Do you see a fault line? No. Connecting these two? No. I mean, it's just in the general region is all it is. So if we pan out even more, there's a 6-5 down here. It's a few miles away from Fiji. And then, well, this one's already passed, I think, unless it's still there. There it is. There's a 5-5 over here in Central America. We can go down here. I can just show you a ton of 5s right now. There are a bunch of them in the last 24 hours. And I'm telling you guys, that was a 6-5. I showed you guys that one. Sorry. And there was actually one up here yesterday, I think, right in the middle. They're not on fault lines, is what I'm trying to tell you. When you start seeing big ones not on fault lines, we better be paying attention. It's just not a normal thing to happen. It does happen. It's not like never happened, but what I'm saying is it's not something that we would expect to see. Now, if you look at these, I find this interesting, and a lot of people have talked about this. Ron, Dutch, anybody predicting earthquakes and stuff. You see the 1, 2, and the 3. See how they're spaced out? That's a signature that they see a lot. Okay, and I don't really know the science behind that, but I do know that that's what they talk about that a lot. And then you got the 7-3 kind of right in the middle of all of it, like a fulcrum point. They talk about a fulcrum point all the time. If you guys don't know what a fulcrum point is, go study or just key up fork truck driving. You have to know what a fulcrum is for fork truck driving, or you'll end up flipping that fork truck. Basically, it's how you're weighted, and it's like a pivot point. It's a real basic thing. I'm not going to get into detail because it takes way too long to try to explain everything down to that level. But a 5-8 down here, a 5-2. See these? I mean, these aren't chumps. These are decent sized quakes. Okay, so there's the flare thing. Now let me answer Jamie's question I got in the email. This is windy.com, and she was asking about hurricanes and stuff and why they spin in the direction that they do. And so I'm just going to give you guys a really basic understanding of this. I've studied this for a long time. I've been a weather buff. I was afraid of storms when I was a kid, so it caused me to really research this topic really, really heavily. People always ask why is the storm system or hurricane spinning counterclockwise? Okay, well that's only true in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, they spin the opposite direction. Okay, and let me explain to you why. Now, the biggest mistake that people make when they're looking at this, they'll look at the wind maps and they forget. This is where the mistake it gets made. And Jamie was trying to explain to me why he was asking this question, and this is why. Most of them, like if you key it up and you don't have the right things clicked up in the key, the high and low pressure H and L won't show up. You'll just see circulating winds. You have to understand that this is what causes it to spin the direction that it is in the opposite hemisphere. It's the high and low pressure that's the main driving factor here. Okay, so let me explain. Now, seeing two low pressure systems next to each other, two and high pressure systems next to each other, we see that. It's going to happen. Now, listen, I'm not talking about the polar vortex and how much the weather is all jacked up, because it is. The jet streams are completely jacked. Just saying. So let me do this real quick, and I want to explain this to you guys because it's important to know this. It's real simple. Low pressure systems have lower pressure at its center. Winds blow towards the low pressure. In a high pressure system, they're blowing away. So given the rotation of the Earth, centripetal force, and there's some other laws involved there too I'm not going to get into. But because of high and low pressure, they're going to spin opposite directions. And they're right next to each other. They don't have to be they can be right next to each other. So that's what Jamie was asking me. So I hope that clears some stuff up with that, because you have to make sure you put the high and low pressure on here, guys. You have to. That's the reason they spin, and that's why they can. It's not, you can go back and look at, historical data as far back as you can with satellites, and you're always going to see storms spinning in the opposite direction of each other in the same hemisphere. You're going to see that. Like right here, high and low next to each other. Now, if you took the high and low off of there, you would wonder, why are they spinning opposite direction? Well, this is why. It's because of the high and low pressure. It's really that simple without going too deep into it. But again, I do think the polar vortex is kind of jacked up. We're still kind of waiting on some noctilucent clouds. It's about that time for the northern hemisphere. So, but yeah. So let me do this real quick. So let me show you this one more time. Okay? I mean, this thing is really, really active. Okay? I just want to put it out there. Now, again, we'll wait for all the data to come in to really kind of dig into it. I'll probably do another stream later on today or tonight. And, it does look like the area is still unstable. So, chances are it's probably going to flare some more. If not some little ones at least. Yeah, see, it's already flaring again right there. It's not a big one, but it's still a flare. In the eruptions, the release of the filaments and stuff that were there after the flare really is what I'm going to be looking at, because that's really what is going to give us the bigger issue. Anything we were going to get from the actual flare part of it is already here. Let's take a look at it here on the absorption chart. So you got that. Okay, yeah, I got it up there pretty good. Now the one that happened earlier today when the United States was facing the sun, it did actually cause some small radio blackouts. And that's going to happen. Let's see if we can't. There's another one. Okay, yeah, see, just like it's showing up here, you get the bigger one here, and then here's the smaller flare right there. Just like up here, like I was showing you. Here and here. Okay? So, Jamie, I hope that answers your question. If you're in here, if you're watching on replay, if you got any more questions, just email me about this, and I'll go more in depth. But anybody, guys, just key it up. It's real simple. It's showing you right here. There's so many things here that's going to show you what you're looking at and why they spin the direction that they do. So So as far as hurricanes, now I want to say something else here too real quick on that note. There has been a few storm systems that have broken that rule. They're very rare, but they do happen. You'll get a hurricane spinning the wrong way. But, like here in the States, we deal with tornadoes, right? Let me get the chat back up here. We deal with tornadoes, right? So, yeah. And every once in a while, they'll catch one on camera that's actually spinning the wrong direction too. Or a different direction, I should say. So those rules are there, as physics is concerned, but they can be broken every once in a while by whatever conditions are there. So that's just what I wanted to point out there. So when you look at these, you can see northern and southern hemisphere. See the low pressure here is spinning counterclockwise. And that's because the Earth is actually rotating that way. And when you go in the southern hemisphere, it's going to spin the other way. All right. Notice how all the high pressure in the northern and southern hemispheres are different. They're spinning opposite directions, just like the low pressures are. So if you didn't have the high and low pressures turned on, you would think that this was something crazy happening. But you got to understand that the low and high pressure, that's why. So I hope that cleared it up for you, Jamie. But yeah. Okay, guys. I am going to go ahead and get out of here. I just wanted to bring that to you guys. God bless all you guys. I'll try to come back with some more later on. And we'll take a look at it, guys. So, God bless. Yahusha saves. And you can drink this Kool-Aid.